This is the HG-1 Prime coffee grinder from Craigland Design Studio. It's a manual coffee grinder that I've been using for the last 3 months to make about 3 to 4 espressos per day, and just wanted to share my thoughts and an overview on it. So it's very similar in iteration on the previous HG-1 coffee grinder. It uses the same 83 millimeter Mazer burrs. They've made it a little bit shorter and a smaller footprint here. And it's got a 2.5 to 1 gearing ratio. So when you turn this crank 2.5 times, it turns the shaft 1 time. So pretty comfortable. Grinding speed is around 60 revolutions per minute, which means that the shaft is turning at 24 RPM. So the actual grinder, it comes with this main grinder assembly here. You get to pick a dosing funnel of your choice, and then you can add on this bamboo skid plate on the bottom. And you can also get a mounting kit, screw mounting kit, if you wanted to mount it to a cutting board or a countertop or something like that. So out of the box, I noticed a little bit of a squeak in the gear assembly up here, and I contacted Craig about that, and he was very helpful and sent some instructions on where to add lubricant. So I added the lubricant, and it seemed to help, and it also just seemed to work itself out over time. So now it's very quiet when we turn it. I also noticed it's a little bit of a small gap here to pour the beans in. This is this funnel piece here is where you pour the beans in. So if you're used to using some kind of a cup or a tin and you're trying to pour the beans in here, you can't really turn the cup to get the beans out. So you'll want to use something different. You can use the tubes that they sell. This is a dosing cup from Leveramics, and this one makes it very easy to tilt the beans in here. If you spray the beans to help with the static, then it might be a little bit harder to get them out, but usually you can get the beans in very easily with this, or there's some different silicone flexible bowls and things that you can try as well. Another thing that I noticed is since this is open up here, a lot of bean fragments kind of pop out while you're grinding. So I contacted Craig about that as well, and he was very helpful and sent a drawing file of a lid that you could get laser cut or 3D printed. I modified it a little bit and made a second piece. So now I'm using this 2-piece lid here. So this one piece always stays on, and you can pour the beans in even with that on. And then the second piece can slide on top of that. So it fully covers the grind chamber. It's pretty easy to take the lid off, put the beans in, and then you don't get any fragments popping all over the counter. The grind adjustment is pretty smooth and easy to use. So you just partially lift up this collar here, and then under each line mark here, there's holes that can sit on top of the pins beneath it. So to adjust coarser, you adjust it like this. To go finer, you adjust it like this. And then once you reach the setting you want, you can set it down like that. Each mark on here is 5 micron vertical spacing of the burrs, and that tends to change the espresso shot time about 3 to 4 seconds when you're at a reasonable grind size. Sometimes when you're adjusting this collar, you'll notice the handle will get moved a little bit. I think when it's pinching a coffee particle between the burrs. So when that happens, I just drop the collar down wherever it is, give it a crank or two to get the particle out, and then I can keep adjusting a little bit finer. And for the dosing funnel here, you have three choices. You can choose the blind tumbler, which is their original style tumbler. You can also choose the espresso shaker funnel, number 1 or number 2. The number 1 accommodates a 58 millimeter espresso basket, and this is the espresso shaker funnel number 2. I thought it just matched the aesthetics of the grind chamber a little bit better. So we can pull that out. And you can see it's two pieces. There's a stopper in the center, and then the tumbler here. It also comes with a lid, so you can put this on top when there's coffee grounds in there, and then use that to shake it up and homogenize the grounds a little bit. I find that it's a little bit messy. You get some coffee grounds around the ridge there, so I don't really use this. I am stirring the coffee grounds in the basket anyway to get rid of the clumps. So that's not really a part of my routine. So this one has ridges on it that can fit a 49 millimeter or a 58 millimeter basket. So here it is with the 58 millimeter basket on there, pretty snug. So that means it has a smaller hole than the number 1 funnel. So it also concentrates the grounds a little bit more towards the center of the basket. So if you think you're only going to be using the 58 millimeter and you like the looks of it, maybe the number 1 is a better choice. The skid plate that you can add onto your order, I found it to be really useful. Just makes it easy and smooth to slide it on a countertop or on the cutting board and to get the funnel in and out. As far as mounting the grinder so that it's stable and easy to grind with, it does come with a silicone pad on the bottom, and it's pretty tacky. And if you put it on a smooth surface, especially if you dampen it a little bit first, it makes almost a suction cup kind of seal with the surface, and it works really well. If some coffee grounds get worked under the grinder after a while, then you have to take it off, or it'll come off while you're grinding, and you want to clean everything pretty well and then stick it back on. So I think that happens over the course of a month or so. So when the seal gets kind of bad, then you can clean it off and be good for another month. I wanted a more permanent option, so I mounted it to this pretty bulky cutting board here, which is also my preparation area, and that makes it really stable to grind with. You could also use double-sided foam tape to stick it to a countertop if you wanted to, without having to drill holes through anything. But I really like the kind of cutting board preparation station now. So here's a quick run through so you can see what it's like to use the grinder. Once you get going, it's pretty easy to maintain the same pace. Then when it sounds like it's just about done, I like to give it kind of a hard knock on the wood. Get any leftover grinds out. I'll transfer the grinds to the basket. I'm doing this with a couple sprays of water in the beans, but right after grinding, so you can see they stick to the grinds cup a little bit there. And here's another grinds transfer, but this time I waited about 1 minute after grinding, and you can see they fall out much more cleanly in this case. Okay, now we'll hold a shot of espresso. Hard to see, but there's a shot mirror down to the right. And the whole basket fills in quickly and looks pretty good. It's pretty easy to get repeatable shots once you have the grinder dialed in. It's pretty easy to grind coffee on here, even at espresso fineness. I've done some kind of lighter medium roasts, usually doing medium dark roasts on here. It's pretty easy to keep just a consistent and relaxed pace with a 2.5 to 1 gear ratio. A typical 15 to 16 gram dose will take me around 30 seconds for espresso. For filter coffee, that same amount of would take me around 15 seconds. So pretty fast by hand grinder standards. The espresso shots compared to a niche, I think have they're a bit mellower. Some of the harsher notes are gone, which I like a lot. The reviews online will say that these burrs, either in the key grinder or the HG-1 or HG-2 grinders, these burrs give up some body, but I haven't noticed that so much. I think the shots are just as thick as when I make them with the niche. So overall, I'm really pleased with the espresso performance from this grinder. For pour over, it also does really well. Much better than the niche. I think a cleaner cup, less muddy, and the drawdown happens in a reasonable amount of time. But compared to another manual grinder I have, the 1Z Presso K Pro, this one still, the HG-1 still outputs significantly more fines. So it can work all around for pour over and espresso. But I think if you're going to get it just a dedicated filter coffee grinder, then there might be a better choice out there. So overall, I'm very pleased with this grinder. I had used manual coffee grinders for many years before this, so I was pretty confident that I would enjoy using this one. Every once in a while, there's a morning where the first shot of the day I don't really feel like doing the manual grinding process. I would rather just flick a switch, but that doesn't happen too often, and usually it's been something I look forward to using every day. If you find that you're usually trying to make your coffees as quickly as possible and then just get back to whatever you're doing, then this might not be a great grinder for you. But if you tend to slow down and it's a process that you enjoy slowing down to do, then I think this is a great grinder. So you'll want to make sure that you could allocate a fair amount of horizontal space for this grinder. It's a little bit wider than most electric grinders would be. With the crank handle here, you want to make sure that you have plenty of room to turn this freely. And then when you take the grounds funnel out here, that also comes off to the left a little bit. So just keep the space constraints in mind. Overall, the grinder seems like it's really well made. The fit and finish are great. Stuff doesn't seem to wobble very much. The grinding action is very smooth, and the corners are nice and rounded off. So I've really enjoyed using this grinder. The skid plate, I think, should definitely be added to your order. It's very helpful and useful. As well as the screw mounting kit, if you think there's any chance that you'll want to mount it to a surface in the future. I do wish it came with some kind of a cup or a funnel to help you get the beans into here more easily. And also I wish it came with some kind of a lid to put on top to help keep the bean fragments from jumping out. But that's easy enough to make your own after the fact. So overall, I really enjoy using this grinder, and it's a great piece of equipment.